let's go watch it in 2D. No, let's go watch it in 3D. But if we watch it in 3D, then is it worth the cost?
Warning, this podcast contains spoilers. Warning, this podcast contains spoilers.
Dr. Pym, I actually heard what happened to you. You opened up the quantum realm. That's when this crazy creepy ghost who walks through walls and stuff. Stole your tech. And now she wants to take over the world or whatever. Who would have believed that in your hour of need, you would turn to us? Not me. Because we robbed you. Do you remember? That's us.
The only chance we've got is both of you. Ant-Man and the Wasp teaming up.
Follow my lead.
Hello. This is Adolph with
James Tate.
And today we're reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp with full spoilers.
Warning, this podcast contains spoilers.
Yes, so if you don't want to be spoiled, then watch the spoil-free review.
And in that podcast, I will be talking about the 3D element. So I will just say that I liked it, but I didn't love it. It was good. Let's move on, because James didn't watch it in 3D, right?
Yes. Yeah. So.
So go ahead and get started on how the movies began.
Okay, well, the film kind of starts out interestingly with the kind of like a summary of what kind of happened in the last one, where, Ant-Man went into the quantum zone.
Yeah, the quantum realm.
The quantum realm, yeah. He shrinks down to just, I think it's microscopic or below that size, and enters a different dimension, basically. And and it kind of picks up from there. He's actually still under house arrest. It turns out that he has been basically for the last 2 years, he has been under house arrest by the government for his involvement with Captain America in Civil War.
And we actually get a consequence of the Sokovia Accords, right?
Which is unique because, aside from a couple things, this is really the only example of like a real arrest. I guess we will see what happens to Hawkeye if they decide to do something like that with him.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting when the movie started to really go there. I kind of thought they dropped the whole chords already, but
yeah.
So we get a nice, wholesome scene with Ant-Man playing with his daughter and pretending to be in the caves with the ants and out, and it was really sweet.
Yeah. I do like those scenes. I think they're, they are kind of a part of the Ant-Man movies.
They're really wholesome, and you really get a good sense that he's trying to be a good father, if not is a pretty great father. And, his daughter is a big part of his life. And that's something you don't really see in other Marvel movies because, Hawkeye has a family, but for the most part, no one else really does.
Mm-hmm.
So accidentally, his foot gets off of the fence and, he breaks through, and it caused the FBI in to investigate. And it was like, I wasn't trying to, just an accident. And the whole FBI thing is a recurring thing. I think they overdo it, but every once in a while they can't really, I don't know, they make sure you're aware that he's in house arrest. He's not supposed to leave the house. If he leaves the house, he's going to jail, and he only has like 3 days left or something. So, he wants to make sure he has the freedom to do what he wants because, he can't be a superhero if he's locked up in the house, and he can't be a dad.
And they kind of make a point about like, how this difficult for him in the sense that he hasn't spoken with Hank Pym or Hope Pym or Hope Van Dyne. So because of that, he hasn't contacted them since since really you think like maybe the events of Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's kind of an interesting turn to make Civil War such a big part of setting up the movie. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Because you have other films that are kind of tie-ins that really don't mention Civil War at all, like Black Panther. Like, was Civil War really brought up at all in Black Panther? No. I mean, besides his dad dying.
Yeah. So, Lewis is here and he's trying to make his own business. And, Scott Lang or the Ant-Man is trying to, help him out, but he really can't because he can't leave his house. And then
and it was funny to see like that team back from the first movie.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about them.
Yeah.
So, we get to go back with Dr. Pym and Hope and see that they're trying to still find a way to get the wife out of the quantum zone now that they know that she can exist there and can leave. Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet Van Dyne.
Yeah.
So they need a special part because they're making this like machine that helps them get into the quantum realm and have like a bus or like a car or something. They get in and out easier without having a suit. And they need the help of Scott Lang as the Ant-Man. And they, have a giant ant stay at the house and, pretend to be him, which they program him.
Yes.
And they go out on their adventure and they meet up with Sonny Birch, played by Walton Goggins. And he's trying to, sell them the part, but they want more. And then there's an action scene with, Hope in the Wasp costume and battling them. And what do you think of Sonny?
I felt he was kind of he appeared a lot in the movie. He was in a lot of the movie, and I kind of felt he was a really kind of simple villain.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really understand why he was in that much of the movie.
Yeah, this was one thing that I couldn't talk about in the spoiler-free because I had no idea this villain was in the movie. So they, it was not part of the marketing. It wasn't mentioned, and he's a big deal in this. And I don't like him.
Yeah, I don't really like him either, and I don't really understand, what his deal is because, I mean, he's just some guy who wants to steal a lab. That's it. Like, there's no to put it bluntly, the last villain had a lot more motivation than him, and he wasn't that good either.
Yeah, so it would have made more sense to have Hammer come back from Iron Man 2 and like, hey, I'm collecting this superpowers, technology.
Hammer, you could put AIM in there. Even you could even like, if you really wanted to, have Hydra come back. Hydra ran off with the Pym particle. What happened to them?
After these messages, we'll be right back.
This podcast is brought to you by 3D Wiggle. With 3D Wiggle software, you can impress your family and friends with 3D gifts and videos. To find out more information, please click on the link in the description for 20% off coupon as well. This podcast is also brought to you by Patreon. With Patreon, you can become a patron and get this podcast commercial free and get many more benefits. Please click on the description again to get more information. Now, back to the show.
So, I think he was a awful villain. It just didn't. He had a really bad accent, and the motivations were just like, we're gonna.
Well, the weird thing was though that I think around halfway through the film they become joke villains.
Yeah.
Like, because of the whole the encounter with the gang and the truth serum meme.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I thought was funny, but it was pushing it a little bit. So I don't know. They were just kind of there, and then they become jokes, and then they were easily defeated, and then that's it.
Yeah, it was all kind of a game to get Lewis's, security thing into a legitimate business to help him out. So it was more just like an excuse for Lewis and that gang to have something to do.
Yeah, I think let's kind of go forward the movie, because he's not the only villain.
No,
there was another one.
Ghost.
Yes.
Now, Ghost, okay, she is an interesting concept for a villain, not an interesting character. At least that's what I think.
Here's the thing. She's very one note. She's like, I have this problem. It is painful, and that's all I care about. Like, I literally care about nothing. The interesting thing is that, like, from her first scene, like the very first scene that, like, she takes off her mask, she has this conversation with Ant-Man, and that's like, I don't want to hurt you, or something like that. And it kind of makes me believe that, like, at one point in the script, there was a plan to make her more complex than she was, because that like, if you compare that, like, reaction to how she behaves in literally every other scene, it's like that sounded like a different character. I don't know if you remember that, like, the whole, like, because basically the scenario is she steals the lab to try and fix herself, basically. Which, if you want to know why she can steal an entire lab, it's because they can shrink a building. Basically, they can shrink a building and then they could carry it around like it's a briefcase or something. So they shrink the entire Pym lab. She steals it, and they go after her, and they think that they snuck up on her, but she's actually awake, and she actually, ties them all up. Now, Scott Lang wakes up before Hope Van Dyne and Hank Pym wake up, and they kind of have this conversation, and it's like, you get the feeling that she's a little bit more complex than, like, just steal the lab and, like, fix herself. But no, she reverts back immediately, and we never really see that side to her character again.
Before you get too far, the reason why Ghost is a character is because she phases in and out of our reality.
Yes. She's like, there's a molecular anomaly or something that, like, causes her to shift density or something like that.
Yeah, they explain it that, some of the, experimenting with the Pym particles in the past caused an accident, and, her parents died, but she survived, but she, needed the help of other Pym particles to get better. And, you get Bill Foster or Dr. Foster helping him out, which, actually I kind of like Lawrence Fishburne in this.
Yeah.
And that's a good character of,
He's definitely a lot more. One thing I like about his character is that he may not like Pym, but he is not an evil character at all. And will basically there's a moment when Ghost says that she's gonna kill someone, and he scolds her and it's I'm gonna have no part in that, and I'm not gonna help you at all when you do that. So he's not just a generic villain, evil scientist that will try and help her, and that I think makes him a lot more complex than her. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and Dr. Foster has a pretty good long, comic book record as being the Black Goliath or the Goliath or Giant Man in the past. And, he has a history with Hank Pym, which we didn't get in the first movie, but, we get here. And unfortunately, they do mention Ghost and she being an assassin for S.H.I.E.L.D. and having all these adventures. It's oh my God, I want to see more of that movie, not this.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, but they don't do anything with it,
Exactly.
And it's so frustrating because you had a really good idea here and you just let it go.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's not her abilities or her costume or her history even. It's just the portrayal of her character that feels really off.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's normal villain syndrome because she's not a carbon copy of the hero many. She's her own thing and she has her own, but it's just something about it.
And, they go back and forth trying to steal the building, steal the park.
Yeah. And another criticism I have of the movie is eventually it just becomes grab the lab. It becomes a chase.
A MacGuffin.
Yeah. The lab becomes a MacGuffin and they chase it around for a while. And, Ant-Man becomes Giant Man for a while, which is pretty cool. But he falls asleep, which I don't remember if that is the thing from Civil War. Was it?
No. Okay. They did mention this and say that it's very exhausting to be Giant Man, which is a very good thing they mentioned because, why don't you just stay as Giant Man? But it takes a lot of energy to stay that big. To use that much energy, it's easier to be small, so there's a definite minus to being giant. So you move slower, you're not as good with reaction times and, it takes more energy. So you have that, and you have the chase scene in San Francisco is pretty damn great, I think.
Yeah. I'm not saying that the chase scenes are bad. The execution is certainly good. I'm just saying that towards the end, it becomes really... I'd say that this film is really simple. Really, okay. You got the thing. You got to do this. Now we have this, and we got to go here. It's basic. Very, basic. But, if... It's kind of hard to be honest, it's hard to judge this movie in comparison to other Marvel movies just because of how different the Ant-Man movies are in the sense of they're action comedies. Other Marvel movies have comedy in them, but the Ant-Man movies are strictly, comedy. You know what I mean? They are. That's one of the things that the genre is.
Yeah, and I actually think the comedy hit 100%. I was laughing constantly.
I actually, honestly, this is the antithesis to what Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is, if you ask me. Where where Guardians of the Galaxy 2 felt really rushed and forced, and most of the jokes fell flat. I felt like just because of like you have a lot of scenes in this movie where me and the people I was with were laughing really hard. Like in specific, there is a scene where Ant-Man shrinks, but he doesn't shrink to like a microscopic size. He shrinks to the size of a child, and it's hilarious. It doesn't like, and I don't just think it's because he's small. It's just like the comedic timing and everything, and what they do with it. It's really funny.
Yeah, and the movie, the comedy and the action are really interwoven. Like, you can't take away the action or the comedy. They're one and the same, and that's what makes it funnier, because everything works in that universe. It works so well.
If I had one criticism of the movie, though, one honest criticism is for a name, Ant-Man and the Wasp. There's not a lot of Ant-Man and Wasp. But I mean that in the sense of there's not a lot of like them working together on screen, like to do stuff. Like they have a couple scenes, but it's not like that's the title of the movie. You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah. I mean, she has scenes, he has scenes, they have scenes,
but it's not together.
But it's not very few together. Very short,
And and the thing is though, it's like they even bring this up with the whole like you need a partner thing, where it's like, okay, well, they're partners, right? Well, they don't, If you ask me, I would have, if I was in control of this movie, I would have made that a bigger part. Like them working together.
Yeah. And when they have to go to the school and get the original Ant-Man suit because they have another version that's not as good, and then they have to go back to the house because the FBI is going over there, and then they have to go back out, and then it just goes back and forth, and it finally ends with everything happening, the big chase scene where you have Sunny and Ghost chasing Ant-Man and the Wasp, and you also have Lewis there, and Sunny they do have that truth serum scene where Lewis gets to have his big rant, which I really liked.
Yeah.
So, Lewis, the character, is really well known for having a long, elaborate rant where he's telling a story that's just really funny. And they did that in the first movie, and they did it one scene. They gave him one great scene with it, and I really loved it.
Yeah, I did like the truth serum thing. Again, it could have been forced, but it wasn't.
So, at the end of the day...
If this was Guardians of the Galaxy 2, they would have forced.
Yeah. They gave that enough. They didn't do too much. It was fine. So, at the very end, Hank Pym goes into the quantum realm to find his wife. And she eventually finds her. And, during this time, you have that big action scene. And, people stealing the map and getting it. Eventually they do, the ghost needs to, try to suck the power out of her. Just kind of weird.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, I felt the whole to get better, she has to kill like, that was weird, and I didn't really understand that. Another thing that's strange about this movie is the fact that, okay, so it explains that when Ant-Man went to the quantum realm, he somehow fused with Van Dyne.
Yes.
It's like, is that still like a thing? Like, is that connection still there? Because the thing is that they don't really explain it that well.
Yeah.
And at one point he's possessed by her, and it's hilarious because he starts holding he starts holding Hank Pym's hand, and
Yeah.
it's funny, but it's like it's not explained, and we don't understand like because if you really want to get technical, like that was the only scene it was in.
So we do eventually get, Janet Van Dyne out, and she happens to heal Ghost, and then Lewis manages to catch Sonny, and everything kind of wraps up, and
Yeah,
and they go back to the house, and the FBI is like, "What? We thought we had you," and nope.
yeah.
They just kind of overdid that. I was like, okay, 2 times, yeah, 3, too much.
It was so sitcom. It was
Yeah.
so sitcom,
It was corny.
Yeah.
So, the movie ends well. And, I did like how everything kind of wrapped. And then we have one hell of a
Yeah.
mid-credit scene.
I actually this is like one of my favorite end credit scenes that they've done. Because like you get the feeling you get the, like when you watch it you feel like you know what's gonna happen. Like did you know kind of?
Well, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I suspected would happen. That okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In my mind, maybe they would start to fade away, and then Hank Pym and Janet would be like, "Hey, Ant-Man, Wasp, go into the quantum realm. You'll be safe there." And that's what they do, and then they come out and they see what's going on.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. They're going back there to get more juice or whatever to help heal Ghost, and it's just Ant-Man, and they go in, and he's in there, and then he wants to come out, and he come out, and all 3 of them are dust because of Thanos.
Yeah.
So he's stuck,
Uh-huh.
which...
I'm just wondering how they're going to get him out there, because really no one knows that kind of tech but Pym.
Yeah.
So
and Janet, and Hope, and before he was able to get out because he heard his daughter or whatever.
Yeah.
But his daughter's not there, and then they did mention Janet mentioned, oh, there's time vortexes out there,
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting. Oh my god, I have to wait another year.
Yeah.
And then we get a really crappy final credits scene.
Yeah, it was. I kind of. It was kind of aesthetic. I like it. It's basically the ant that for some reason is still at his house. I guess he didn't tell it to leave. But the ant is basically playing the drums, which he usually does while he was at home. The ant is playing the drums, and it turns to the screen, to the TV screen, and there's like a emergency signal. So basically, it's implying that this takes place after everyone's disappeared. Basically, that's what I got from it. But yeah. So
it was just
I don't like this. Like this scene's not very good, but I like how it's like, yep, Infinity War happens. That's basically the end credit scene,
But that was in the trailer. That was in the trailer, the ant playing the drums. I was like, oh my god, you're going to make me wait for this.
I wish he was actually like something for the next one.
So, and then they should have switched it around. The ant playing the drums in the mid-credit, and then the other one being the final credit. Because that was a much more impactful scene. And
yeah, exactly.
And they shouldn't have even shown the ant playing the drums in the trailer.
Yeah.
So the trailer, I think the first time that it spoiled the end credit scene, a post credit scene. So
yeah.
So what do you think, James?
I liked it. I it's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to rate it. But
it really is.
It's hard to rate it because it's like there's good elements, There's some elements. I think it's a solid 7.
Yeah, I
You know?
agree 100%. I was going back and forth between 7 and 8 for so long, and it's like, no, the villains suck.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I like the comedy though. So
The comedy and the action were top notch.
but my only 2 gripes is the villains and the fact that it doesn't have a lot of Ant-Man and Wasp.
So yeah, it's one of those things that I want to give it more because it was so funny, so good action.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
just can't. It's frustrating because the comedy is just so damn good.
yeah. I wonder specifically if this one will hit it out of the park in the box office too.
I do wonder if the comedy will work with the second viewing, or if it'll only be good for the first.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. But specifically speaking, like, do you think that this will do as well as like the other films? I mean, it's probably not going to even get close to Infinity War, but like, what do you think?
It's doing pretty good right now. It's not like the most amazing, but I mean, it's pretty good. It says 75 million for the weekend, which it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Not the best. It's already at 161 worldwide, so it's pretty good. I mean, it probably will end at 300 or 400, but it's already made more, the first weekend than the original. So it's doing pretty good,
Yeah.
I think, a lot of people wanted to see more of it because of Infinity War. They're like, oh, we got to see what the next clue is. And, I think the good word of mouth of the comedy is going to keep it coming,
Yeah.
And it's, pretty family friendly. You could take everyone, all of the Marvel movies are to an extent, but like this one really felt like everyone could enjoy,
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts?
Nah, I mean, I'm kind of. It'll be a long wait for the next movie, but yeah. So
there's a lot of pressure for Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
I'm worried about it because it is so much pressure, and you got to introduce the character and get the movie in the 90s, and get a lot of setup.
Yeah. You gotta somehow explain why this movie wasn't mentioned.
Yeah. So we should be getting some information on Avengers 4 soon, I hope. But I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for me. Bye.
All right. Bye.
All right, before this podcast ends, I want to give a thank you to my patrons. Right now, we have one patron, which is David from Spain, and I want to thank you for your financial support to help making this possible. If you want your name to be called out and your location, please become a patron on Patreon. Our link should be in the description, or just look for us, 3D or 2D, on Patreon, and you get plenty of benefits. So again, thank you, David from Spain, and I hope to have many more Patreon patrons with us soon. Thanks again, David. All right, so that's going to be it for this podcast.
We now have a Patreon, and the link is in the description. Thanks for watching.
And we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They don't put it everywhere. Just look for us, 3D or 2D. And of course, review us on iTunes. And if you want to write us a letter, our email address is email3dortwo2d@gmail.com. So that's going to be it. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye, everyone.